And that explains it.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I'm not.
First item on the agenda is approval of our minutes from our August 9th meeting. Anybody have any comments, changes, corrections in that? Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any further comment? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same for opposed. Thanks for doing that, Victor. Approval of the agenda. I do have two items here we should add underneath F in new business. One would be the Marine officer report that we had in our packet from Chief Knight. And the other is from the Historical Society about their blessing and food plans for next year. So, okay with everybody?
Yes.
So the agenda is approved by consensus. Is there any public comment? Ladies first.
Oh, absolutely.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Nickel on 638 West Bluff. About a month ago, I was at the city council meeting when the proposal for the harbor master building renovation was discussed. One item on the plan that caught my eye was that the plan was calling out for 4 washers and dryers. I wasn't sure why we were planning to put that many washers and dryers in, as we don't really get that kind of cruising traffic. So I decided to do some research, visiting surrounding marinas in regards to their laundry facilities. As you can see in the matrix and the photos that I think you all got, 5 marinas have 2 washers and dryers, and 2 marinas have 3 washers and dryers. No one has 4. All of the marinas have a folding table of some sort and a few laundry sinks, and plus some maybe have a change machine or some soap dispensers. As I conducted my research at the various marinas, I found some other amenities that we should consider for our reservation if we do want to attract more cruising transient boaters to our marina in Harbor Springs. A boater's lounge. Every marina except Rogers City had a boater's lounge, and all of the lounges had windows that overlooked the slips in the water. They were equipped with either sofas and chairs or tables and chairs, plus a small TV. A kitchenette area. All of the marinas except Rogers City and State Harbor had a kitchenette area with a small microwave, small refrigerator, a sink, and a coffee maker or a Keurig machine. When I was visiting these marinas and taking photos, I met quite a few of the loopers, of which there were 300 this summer on the Great Lakes. Talking to them, I found out that many of them were new to cruising the Great Lakes and unfamiliar with Harbor Springs. With no amenities and slightly higher costs and no reservations, many cruisers found no reason to come to our quaint town. They also mentioned that not being familiar with the Great Lakes and not seeing too many good anchorages, they wanted to be able to plan their trip and marina stops ahead of time, especially if the weather turned and in light of all the cruisers this summer. I know we don't want to be a part of the DNR system for reservations, but taking a credit card or the phone to reserve a slip or using a system such as DocWa for reservations could work for our marina. So I'm requesting that over the winter, you start thinking about the interior of our harbor master building and a reservation system. Interior wise, we have two givens, the men's and women's boaters restrooms. But the rest of the building should be looked at to create a welcoming, functional space for boaters with a small boaters lounge that has windows, a small kitchenette, and a laundry area with 2 washers and dryers. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Appreciate your input. Michael?
Good afternoon, everyone. You're probably all familiar with the fact that I'm retiring soon, so I wanted the opportunity to introduce Shay Cross, who's going to be coming to Irish Boat Shop, or is here, but the new incoming president. And you will hear less from me, maybe more from Shay. Who knows?
Irish trying to upgrade, are they?
They are. It's absolutely great. Yeah, absolutely.
What's your name?
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Great. Old business. Port Park Committee update, Bill.
Gonna talk really slowly for a minute while we get something up on the screen here. The Ford Park. The launch, which would be on the exit side, is preferred by the trailer people and by traffic flow as well, to looping around and then parking on the west side of the park. And the staging area and the drive along the water is a choke point and a safety point, and something to be looked at. Some of the stats that I have images to go with this.
Yeah.
The total area of the park is a little over 100,000 square feet. The parking spaces themselves take a little over 20,000 of that, plus the traveling bits. And start with the one at the very top there. All right, there's the layout. So we'll just leave that for a minute. So we've got 34 trailer spaces taking up 17,000 square feet, 19 car spaces for 3,600 square feet. The green space on the south side of the drive there is about 12,000 square feet. The green space on the interior of all the asphalt is about 30,000 square feet. The little point where Wallstrom Dock and Dredge does their thing in the early spring and late fall is about 5,000 square feet, mostly unused in season. There's an elevation drop of about 4.5 feet from Bay Street to the top of the ramp. And there is a slight depression in the middle of that green space where it's actually low, and that's why it tends to be soggy in there. In addition to the fact that there's probably springs underneath it, stuff like that. Some of the topics for discussion are long-term and short-term. Long-term upgrade could include a complete reconfiguration with filling and grading, perhaps changing to the building. Let's see what my next slide is there, Victor. Oh, that's signage. I'm not sure we're in the right, we're doing these back. Okay, so this is looking going into the park, and I'll get to why that's important in just a second. That's the asphalt. There you go. I'm looking for that one. All right. So some of the topics include filling, grading, making changes to the building, a rain garden, bump outs for staging and drop off, improvements to the shelter or replacing the shelter. We did determine that there is a major street project that's planned for 2028, may or may not occur according to Lucas at that point in time. But if we wanted to do some sort of a thing involving grading and asphalt and that sort of thing, that would be the opportune time. So I'm going to suggest that we not really move forward with a detailed, professionally done study. This is obviously not professional. That was done by me in Microsoft Paint. At this point in time, short-term fixes, which we can look at in the near term, improvements in signage, some of which have already been done this year, allocating space for dropping off little boats in the southwest corner where kayaks launch and outfitter drops their stuff off, and that area has seen increasing pressure over the years. Putting a center line down that road and if maybe widening it would improve the traffic flow so that the people who are waiting in line and the people who are just passing through are not interfering with each other to the degree that they do. That road is currently 20 feet, so that's not a lot for a traffic lane. It's adequate, but a little bit more might be better. Other minor issues that we'd like to consider, the pedestrian flow. Now that we've got the ferry coming and going, pedestrian flow, if we were to make a little space along the west side, we might be able to make the flow into town safer and more welcoming. And then signage to encourage and direct traffic to Deer Park parking lot during overflow conditions. What I've got on this illustration here, this is Lucas and I went down and did some stomping around and visualizing, and it looks to me like the green boxes are indicating converting asphalt into green space. And these are very general. Obviously, we'd get a professional person to work on this. Those are possibilities. The big black rectangle would be a traffic flow through for trailer parking and perhaps an island and for pedestrian safety. The little blue box to the north of that would be parking for cars. And then the two black areas on the right would be additional trailer parking. And I think if I recall from my mental math, if we were to convert according to that general diagram, we'd gain about a dozen trailer parking spots and have a net decrease of, I think, 6 to 8 car parking spots. So there is room for reconfiguration, and we could actually gain parking and gain contiguous green space along the water, which is something people expressed an interest in at the same time. And if they happen to have earth moving equipment sitting right on Bay Street, we could probably fold that into some sort of a bid at that point in time. I looked at, even tried to figure out whether reversing the flow to be clockwise instead of counterclockwise, and it didn't make, to my mind, more sense than what we've got going here. I handed out a couple of things to commissioners with just some of my sketches that led to this, and so that's where we are at this time. I'm not other than maybe the striping of the drive and maybe a few more signage improvements. I don't think there's anything I'd recommend that we do like right away. But I am open to discussion generally at this point in time. Anybody want to throw in?
Well, thanks for the work on this. There's a lot here. and nobody's had a chance to really digest it. Why don't we read this? And then send comments to Bill. Your intention is still to bring this through the committee back to this table.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not in a hurry on any of it. But I do think there's definitely room for improvement down to that park, and we could make it into a much better, we can improve traffic flow, make it more welcoming, increase the green space. Make it a more useful facility for everybody, increase the parking and all that. If we will keep get a good design put together. I think it's premature to take it to somebody who would be a professional designer at this point, though.
Bill, in your discussions with Lucas or your thoughts, did you give any thought to any potential ideas what could be done with the building? Be used for?
There is a divergence of opinion on the building. I don't think that thing gets much use at all. The bathrooms are useful as such, but it does not serve as a shelter for perhaps for folks who are coming in and, you know, a sudden downpour would occur, or people getting off the ferry. The next thing heading towards town from Ford Park is Shea. Yeah, Shea, thank you. A lot of words all at once. The Shea Park, and there's like a historical corridor concept that people are working on. So that might be, from the ferry standpoint, a nice entry point to the community and that sort of thing. And I don't know that that building's all that well suited for that. I'm not real familiar with the interior layout. I did poke in there, and I think it could use better ventilation. But I don't think there was a consensus on that.
Thanks.
I think it's awkward, and it limits our options as far as what we would do. But obviously, knocking it down or replacing it with something else would be more expensive than not. So, he did indicate that the lift station, which is I don't know if it's on that map or could bring that back up. It's surrounded by cedars right up against the road, just to the northeast of the building. That moving that is not negotiable. So that space right there, we're gonna have to work around regardless. But the rest of it, he didn't think there were any significant infrastructure issues. You know, there's nothing below grade that can't be dealt with. There is a street water drain that goes through there, but he didn't think that would be a problem. He also indicated that he thought the quality of the asphalt that we've got there was not to the standard that he'd like to see it built. So while it'll last, it is starting to deteriorate in places.
Is the grass, the infield area, has it always been wet regardless of lake level?
Probably. There's a little bit of it's not really noticeable, but if you stand in the middle of it, you can tell that there's a little bit of a bowl to it. And I'm sure that the capillary plus the pressure coming down off the hills above are going to contribute to that. So if we wanted to put something through there, we probably want to raise that grade a little bit, put some fill in there. He didn't think that would be a big deal, especially if you got the trucks.
Yeah,
Coming and going.
it's easy to
Yeah.
gravel.
Yeah.
It's been brought to us by Karen, really, is where I first remember hearing it, about getting that staging area where people could pull up their cars, drop their kayaks and leave. Is that on hold till we solve the problem, or that's a simple solution that maybe we could have done by spring?
A really easy thing would be to designate maybe the south two trailer slots there as pickup and drop off only. Adding asphalt or some sort of a turnout or something like that in the short term, I mean, we could do that, but it would be.
Yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of
Yeah, it
money,
would
but
be-
if there was a way to solve it for next spring, I would love to see
Yeah.
us do that.
Can I clarify something?
Absolutely.
I think there's a little confusion about it. I never really intended to use any of the existing parking spaces for this to happen. There is actually space on the grass, just, next to the last spot, close to Irish, the path through to Irish, that I use to dump my paddleboard. And so I don't see a need to, I would prefer no asphalt anyway. So I think it could be a simple fix of some kind of surface that would allow somebody to pull in 5 minutes, you're out in a repark. So I didn't really want to take any of those.
Yeah, I think a bump out would be easy to do. That is kind of swampy there. So I don't know technically how hard it would be. I mean, obviously you could just.
I think Lucas talked about gravel in there versus asphalt from a drainage standpoint. And we
Yeah, I think
but that was really.
we might have had 3 or 4 words on that, and my impression was that he was ambivalent or wasn't particularly excited about it one way or the other. I don't see any real. You're not going to cost anybody. It's not going to interfere with anybody else's use of anything to take, another 10, 12 feet on the south side of that for a little ways.
Reducing trailable parking spaces in there is likely a challenge to the state because they built it with that many spots. So we certainly don't want to go in there and start doing that without clearing it with those guys, which I think would be problematic. So some other way of looking at this is the way to go.
Victor, you want to weigh in on that?
Sorry, Karen, sorry, I just.
The involvement of the state having helped fund this.
Oh, yeah, so there are for regarding with the grant money received in the 1970s or going forward, if we can find.
The concern that was raised is that if we were to designate a couple of those trailer parking spots as pickup and drop off or temporary only, that might raise a red flag with the state.
I don't think it would, as long as it's not designated for commercial use. As long as it's open to the public.
Well, but as Karen said, there's really room to do it as well.
Yeah,
Fair spot there.
A flyby drop and run thing, I think would be just fine.
And that, the end space is rarely used. It's an odd shape.
Yeah, we'd want to do a little signage, and I really think running a paint line down the middle of that would help.
Yeah, that road's not wide enough to get right down to.
No, it's only 20 feet from dirt to dirt.
Well, there's a lot of suggestions here, some simple and easily doable and some massive and inexpensive. So I think we need to go back to the committee on this thing. So if we'd all read this a little more carefully, send our comments to Bill, then maybe what we need to do is schedule a meeting in December or sometime in the winter and beat this thing up as a group once it comes back to the table.
Is there city money for this, or is this all going to the state if there was an improvement?
I don't think we've gotten to the money part.
I know there is potential for funding from, the state, at least to the design stages, but. that depends on how-
There are line items in the capital improvement plan for the city that could generally be interpreted as usable for this. I think there's some of those are more or less placeholders, if I understand the way that works. If you're talking about.
Well, and for example, we had placeholder for, upgrading the Fort Park building, right? And that's money that, could be used instead for
Yeah.
a design on this.
Does the city actually have that money in the bank waiting
It
for?
doesn't actually exist yet at this point.
Yeah, that's what I think. And as far as waterfront fund goes, we will likely spend a chunk on the bathroom building ahead of this project, so we have to be
Yeah,
cognizant.
that's another reason to kind of push this off into the
Right.
Quick question, Bill, in this, that box with the 9 in the middle of it? That's all single car parking spaces right now?
Yeah, so that would be.
Where do those go?
In that box, there's a net loss of 9 car spots,
Right.
but in the little box just to the up and to the right,
Number 8,
the one in the middle that says plus 12.
okay.
So those would be, and this is just a theory, Lucas and I walking around there one afternoon, that we could put car parking along that line, and that would work reasonably well with traffic flow. And so there would be a net decrease in car parking because we'd be taking the car parking in the upper right and making that trailer parking. Now, we could, with just the rules of how the park is used, say you can park cars there. Most of the time, it's not a problem. Most of the time, you can park wherever you want in that park. It's only like the really high pressure weekends in the summertime when it's even an issue. So.
I would just contribute to be losing access to the kayak ramp to those folks that utilize the kayak.
There would be more of a hike from asphalt to the water through that part. Now, the little green box all the way upper left there, that is a placeholder for, those are currently trailer parking spots. If we were to make the green space, taking the trees out is one of the things that is actually on a number of people's lists of things to do, because they are breaking up the asphalt, they're getting under Irish's building. They don't really do much other than soften the visual impact of Irish's. And we could take some of that space and make it more of a pedestrian throughway. So pedestrian flow from ferry to town could go through that channel, which would leave those as cars. You could put cars there instead of trailers. You know, if. Okay. Theoretically, the ferry's not supposed to be having people park cars. I think most of the time those parking spaces are used by downtown or people working in town as opposed to launchers. I don't have any data on that.
Well, let's,
I do.
sorry, go ahead, Karen.
I do support Michael's question. It seems in the summer, it's really difficult to find a car spot down there.
Yeah.
Other times, not so much, but
Yeah, we need to
Fill up
hash
pretty
this out
quickly.
a lot more.
Yeah.
Doing it now without
Just
really
curious.
studying this isn't the right place to do it, so.
Yep.
Let's move this a little further down, and Bill, if you want to have another meeting with this, and I can chat, figure out when you want to bring it back to the table.
Yeah, I'd like to start with everybody's input. So, you know, if everybody could go down, take a look around. At some point in time, we thought it would be interesting to just go like stake it out so that you could visually, because it's a lot more, there's a lot more room down there than it appears to be when you're looking at these pictures, line drawings and stuff, so.
Right, well, we all have a little bit of work cut out for us, so we'll tackle that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
JD, are you taking comments from the audience?
Wasn't planning to, but we can.
I was just gonna offer at some point, it'd be nice for somebody from FERC to get a meeting to discuss recreational uses.
I'm sure that'll be tied in as we go down.
Yeah, just before it'll go through all the channels before anything happens. This is the first like public meeting where we've been kicking this around. So.
Okay, thank you. Victor, you want to update us on where we are with the building?
Yeah, so I think the goal is to hopefully get either a completion of the building by 2025. The construction could happen in fall of 2024 over the winter to the spring. So this winter, the goal is to actually put out the bid documents early winter potentially. And you don't want to, talking to Mark, you don't want to do it too early. So planning when to do it is something in his mind, but probably early winter, midwinter, we'll put out the bid documents for that.
Are they developed? Do we have a set?
I haven't seen the final ones yet, only what's gone through here into the planning commission. So he's still working on the entire package, so he'll get that to me when it's done, but there was no rush based on his idea of not wanting to go too early. We're not planning to do the construction until us.
A year from now,
Yeah.
so to speak. Yeah, I think that's a good plan. Good, glad to hear it's moving forward. Moving on to new business, At this meeting, we set the next season transient and seasonal rates. Within your packet is a list of like seasonal package rates. Let's tackle those first. On this. Again, for those that don't know, we are by far the most expensive seasonal dock on the public system in the Great Lakes. By a factor of at least 50%. On that, and while we may be under what the private business charge, we're also going to offer some of the amenities.
That's trans.
So,
Yes,
I'm open for suggestions. I'm kind of an inflation guy, and we certainly want to do that, or we're going backwards. So,
That's 2020.
I believe, according to the Fed, as of 3 days ago, the current rate of inflation is just shy of 5%. So I would move that we increase the mooring and seasonal dockage rates for next year by 5%.
is that? I thought it was a little less than
4.7. It depends on which one you look at.
5. I thought it was in there.
It's just under 5.
That with or without food fuel, that's.
I think that's without.
Yeah. That's the difference.
And what would be the difference? I understand the difference between seasonal and transient. Why would transient not be the same?
Well, we'll deal with transient in a minute.
Okay.
The
That's
not-
state requires us to charge a minimum on seasonal and gives us a maximum on transient that we can charge. And we'll.
Okay, so they're separate.
Yeah, so we've traditionally dealt with the seasonal dockage and the seasonal moorage together,
Right.
and then the transients.
And that's not issues.
and it's my annual statement, but we are the highest ones on the lake. How much higher, I don't know, but we are the highest charging, and just because we can, doesn't mean we should. And it troubles me, I don't want to eliminate people, residents who want to be there because our rates are so very high. And we can charge what we want. I mean, if we tripled them, we'd fill them. But in my opinion, I'm making that up, but I have no facts. But I think that going just because we can, I think 5 is too high. I know we need to increase it. We have an ability to do it. I would maybe say 2.5 or 3, but certainly not 5.
Do we have any idea what other marinas in this area are gonna be doing?
So I just, funnily enough, I got an email from a bunch of the marinas and they're asking the same question because they're all going forward. So we're all asking each other what they're doing. So no one really has decided yet, unless maybe Charlotte. I don't know if Charlotte done theirs yet, but
Charlotte has not,
No.
that'll be at their last meeting with Denny in December, the same thing with the task. They do that at their last December meeting, council meeting.
Okay.
The current rate right now is 3.67%. It was 3.18 last month. Last year it was 8.26%. So I think, well, we have a motion on the floor. It hasn't been seconded, so I'll call for a second on the motion.
At the current inflation rate or whatever it is, 4.75.
No,
I
I threw out,
Second,
I threw out 5.
I second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? So we'll be voting on whether to raise the seasonal dockage and mooring rates to a 5% increase. And we'll do a roll call vote, Victor.
No,
But I vote no also. I think 5's maybe too high.
that's 4 yeses for them.
Okay, so we know 5% is too high. Anybody else want to throw something out there?
I would propose a 3% increase.
I would second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, Rick, you want to do roll call vote again?
Karen Stroud,
Yes.
Laura Course,
Yes,
John Baker,
Yes.
Greg Fisher,
No.
Bill McCullough,
Yeah.
Graham,
Yes.
Chip Evers,
Yes.
and Jim Bartlett.
So we had 6 yes votes, is that correct?
Yes.
I'll vote no. I think it should be 4%. But we now know it's 3%. So the motion carries at 3%. So that takes care of the seasonal dock slips and moorings. And this is the recommendation to council. Lawn transfer permits, does anybody have any desire to raise those? We traditionally kind of keep them competitive with the neighborhood, which these numbers are. In an effort to make it easier for folks to access the water.
We're at $5 for a day
Daily
pass.
lunch, yeah.
And I add that, that the state doesn't allow us to charge any more than $5 for the lawn track usage as part of our agreement with the state.
We probably don't want to write that then.
Yeah, no. Leave it, can't charge more than $5.
good with.
So we're okay with lawn trap permit fees? What about transient moorings? We took a pretty good jump on these last year or the year before, if I remember right.
Transient dockage.
I was talking about transient moorings.
Okay.
I would propose we leave it.
Okay with that? All right. Then down to dinghy storage. Everybody okay with that number? $50 for seasonal mooring holders and $215 for non-season. And Michael, how many of those did you sell this year?
Seasonal or non-seasonal?
Your non-seasonal,
I sold 9 this year. Yep.
and that was,
Disputed by the $215.
and that was more a function of lower water, so not having quite as much room at the dock.
Is that for dinghies or dinghies and kayaks?
Dinghies,
Dinghies.
yeah,
Because they're
non-seasonal dinghy permits.
That's getting to be a problem, at least at Joe Ford Dock. I don't.
As far as the crowd goes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me if you have a mooring, you really ought to be able to have.
Yes,
a
absolutely.
spot.
Yep.
It's getting tough to find one.
yep,
The way that should work is if all the mooring holders have exercised their right to buy that $50 pass, and Mike still has room at other locations, he can sell spaces at the $215. But the mooring holders do have first choice. You gotta provide a way for them to get to the room.
Yes.
So we okay with the $215? And maybe let's tie it into the kayak discussion. That is also a $215.
Guys, a clarification, what changed from 23 from 22 that would cause the revenue to go down by 3,000?
are we talking about,
A kayak, I think is story. Irene was right.
from 20 to 17.
Yeah,
I don't honestly have an answer for that one, Greg. I hadn't looked at that number yet closely, so.
You know what?
We did return quite a few kayak storage fees this year from people who weren't happy with the spot they were assigned to. Probably at least 5 that I can think of. But we were able to fill those spots with folks kind of shuffling things around a little bit. So we are going to have some kayak spaces available this year. So we did a refund close to $1,000 right there.
Okay.
And then as far as dinghies went, we sold quite a few less dinghy permits this year to seasonal boaters or seasonal mooring holders. Not quite a few, probably I think 55 altogether out of the 76 available or 66 available spaces. So but there was some flexibility in that number this year.
do we have any waiting list for either category for kayaks or dinghies?
Kayaks would probably have 42 names as of today, and the dinghies, we don't really have a wait list for it. It's just on their application. Only send the invoice in January.
How about for the non-mooring dinghies? Is there a list on that or?
I opened that up May 1st. from people who've been with us before. And this year, I think a lot of it because, again, water. And we got some beach back, which let us sell some spaces on the beach. I think we sold 9 permits altogether, dinghies, non-seasonals.
But we're meeting the demand.
Pardon me,
We are there people who want it that can't get it?
for non-seasonals?
Yes.
No, have not ever turned anybody down.
Okay.
That Greg, that's a good point on that revenue. It's the first time I've seen the sheet. And, you know, for next year, it'd be nice if we had this a little ahead of time instead of giving it to us at this meeting. But I don't understand that dip either, because we sold all the seasonal spots. So how can we be off by 10%?
And it went up,
And we raised the rate.
the rates went up. So,
So I don't understand what's going on. You sure there isn't
He
some kind of
accounted for
accounting
it.
issue with that?
I will have to check with Tina on that one.
but Mike accounted for 2,000 of it by what he just explained, but that still is not it.
Yeah.
Gotta open the door there, would you? Bill Brown.
Okay, I'll let her.
Let the minutes reflect that Bill Brown.
They locked the place up tight. 4:30, everybody goes. Sorry for my language.
We raised it last year, and we raised it maybe 2 years
Or you can just.
before that. I think there was a time it was 100 or 125 or something, so I think it's adequately priced.
With, you know, I would consider a inflationary adjustment on that 250, fixing the going backwards.
I think we made a pretty big increase this past year, 22 to 23. We've done about 150 or 175 and it's gone up every year. 215 seems, I think, reasonable enough. I don't know if I would agree going up.
I would struggle with the logic of not charging the mortgage and dockage people increase, but not the other people who use the stuff. It doesn't seem to be consistent to me. So,
$10.
yeah, I don't think we're looking at a lot of money. 10% is 21.5 is less than that. If you did 10, you'd be fine.
Yeah, I think, you know, the other seasonals are taking an increase function.
Just wonder if they need to bigger increase than some of the others. I
I
have to
don't
look at them.
Yeah, the percentage of increase over the last couple of years is not proportionate to what we were charging the seasonal increases, but it really is. It's another $10, and you know, it's not going to hurt the person,
No.
but the logic, to me, we've already done our big jumps on them for a while,
I'm gonna be more consistent in the future, but. we're
Right.
doing the every
Yeah.
season.
and so maybe this is the time to do it. I, you know, not opposed. I'm just giving.
Well, let's get out there. I will move, we raise the 23-24 non-seasonal dinghy rate and kayak storage rate up $10.
Seconded.
So the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Victor, you want to do roll call vote?
Yes, Bill Brown,
Yes.
Greg Fisher,
Yes.
Bill McCullough,
Yes.
Chip Everest,
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Karen Stroud.
No.
Baker.
Yeah.
Laura Course
Yes.
and Jim Bartlett.
Yes, so the motion carries. And then on to launch permits for commercial city businesses and launch permits for commercial non-city businesses. You got any feelings about those guys? That we can bring out in the open?
Where's that?
Again, we make a major change.
We have kind of consistently over the last few years. But an inflationary adjustment of $20 wouldn't, I don't think scare either one of those guys. I'm sure their rates are going up just for what they're doing on that. We want to make a motion or?
Yeah, I would move that we increase so cold, but the inflationary.
So what number would that be, John?
Well, we're doing 3% on the other ones. Do you want to do an even amount?
Whatever you think,
15 and 20?
5% is $20, so 15 is close.
15 would be a little over 3 on the $400 rate. 20 would be appropriate for.
So the motion is for $20.
I think he's saying $15 for the commercial
15.
city business and the non-city business, $20.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there a second for that? Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Victor, want to do a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Rowe,
Yes.
Laura Course,
Yes.
John Baker,
Yes.
Greg Fisher,
Yes.
Bill Brown,
Yes.
Steve McCullough. Yep. Chip Evers.
Yep.
Tom Graham
Yes.
and Jim Bartlett.
Yes. Anybody wound up about the daily parking pass at $10?
Be museum.
Yeah. That easier for you? Instead of. I think we're okay with it, $10. If everybody else says that, sounds great. On to transient docket rates, you have a couple of sheets in your packet. And we are at level I with the state right now, are we not?
Yes.
And the revenue went down this year because of just less votes, right?
Yes.
I think it's a function of our pricing or just our function of,
I think it's just a function of traffic shit. I don't think it has to do with the price and people pay. They expect to get charged that much when they show up here. And they get charged, Petoskey uses Schedule H, Charlottesville uses J, so we're kind of right in the middle of basically our neighboring marinas. So
and we stayed at I for a long time.
I think we approved that 2 years ago.
would be 9 years.
And we jumped far. We were like in F, we were way down and we took about a 4 spot.
We were down at E
E,
2 or 3 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, we jumped when the state revised this form, which they generally do every 3 years. But this year they did not. So this is the same schedule we looked at last year.
Yes.
And I thought we'd see an increase from their end, which means we could have stayed at I, but still got 40.
And I researched why, or tried to research why the state didn't raise rates this year, because last year I was told it was the end. We were this year or last year at the end of a 3-year cycle. Have not gotten an answer from anybody yet, so. Which seems to the way the state operates, but
I mean, I don't think I ever want to be a J, but I would move and continue with I.
Support.
So motion's been made to stay at the same rate we were last year for transient rate fees, which is the I schedule on the DNR 2024 transient rate sheet. Any further discussion? Victor, you want to do roll call vote, please? Why don't you just write this down? I'm used to the township where if it's a money thing, we have to have a roll call. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, I think we are. Are there any other rates you need from us?
No, that's all of them.
I think we got it. Thank you. Okay, Michael, Harbor Master report.
this will be short and sweet. I start off by thanking my staff this past season. They all did a great job for us. Always responsive to bloaters and everybody always had a positive attitude. Also like to recognize the great work of the lunch ramp by Bob Toma. I think having Bob down there was a huge improvement for us in keeping things moving down there. And I know Bob was really all over being down there, and Bob can be somewhat confrontational sometimes, but I thought he did a really good job down there. I actually got down there to watch him a few times, and we appreciate being able to borrow him from the boat shop as well. And also, I don't know if anybody knows this, but Mary Jane, who's been there forever, was awarded the 2023 Volunteer of the Year at last week's Harbor Stars.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I mean, she's been a fixture in Harbor Springs for years, so to see her recognized like this is pretty neat. So congrats to Mary Jane. Kyle's already beat me to the punch, thanking Larry and Dean for all their good work this past summer. To have those guys out there. I know that voters appreciated it. We appreciate it from just being out there and having a presence. They did several pretty major rescues this year, which was pretty cool. They both can get out there and handle that boat. And so having them out there was really good for us. I think good for everybody all the way around. Regatta, as we all know, is a great event this year, and hosting the GL52s the latter part of August was great. We had 9 of those guys stick around after Regatta. So that's another 3 weeks worth of dockage, which is pretty cool. They've also talked about coming back next year, although Dave Johnson has proposed dynamiting the entrance to Bay Harbor so they can get those boats in there without bumping the rocks. So, but they want to come back here because they had such a good time. So we'll see how that works. Should hear from them here pretty soon. And we talked about the pump out grant we applied for and received. I think it was at the August meeting. We just took delivery of the new pump out. It's the exact same pump out that we have right now. This one, the old one will turn into a spare. And this will be installed in the spring. It's basically plug and play. The electric's already there, the piping's already there. So boom, boom, in the springtime. And that was funded by a grant from the DNR. 75% was funded by the DNR, 25% from the city. We just turned that invoice into the state today and should see a check from them probably mid-November. So that'll cover almost $4,900 of the overall cost of the system. So, and they approved up to $6,500. We did pretty well with that. And now to the numbers, revenue history sheet. I think we included in, I put one in everybody's space when we set up. Revenue was down about 5.5% for the season. Chip asked a question about boat registrations in 2022, total registrations, and this includes duplicate registrations as well, was at 755, and our total boat days were pegged at 3294 in 2022. This year, we saw total registrations at 707 with total boat days at a little over 3,000. So we're just about even with last year, but unfortunately down about probably 10% overall. So I spoke with several marinas in our vicinity, and Charlevoix and Petoskey were the only ones who reported any kind of increase in revenue from year to year. Charlevoix was up about 10%. Boater registrations were about the same, and Petoskey saw about 10%, with boat days actually 2% down from the year before. So I don't know if I think they might have raised their rates last year, gone up
It's
to
gotta be
age.
related to the rates.
Pardon me?
Gotta be related to.
It is related to the rates for sure. Yep. And all the other marinas I spoke with, and this includes Northport, Mackinac City, the Straits Marina, Leland, Suttons Bay, anybody will actually answer my phone calls. They all spoke to about even with 22, or in a couple of cases, especially Northport, down from last season. So I think we maybe held our own, for lack of a better term. So I thought it was a pretty good season overall, considering we had a pretty darn slow start, and buffed up by Regatta, which really helped us out quite a bit in the 52s. And unfortunately, we did have some empty slips after the 4th, but it was a pretty solid year all the way around, to my estimation. So, and thank to you guys for all your support this season. Again, really appreciate it. And that's what I have to say.
Mike, just one question here.
Yeah.
So on this chart,
Yep.
we're down 5.5%
Mhm.
for transient, but we're up 1.5% overall.
Overall, that includes the seasonal
Seasonal.
revenues.
All right, just want to clarify that,
Yep.
we're up overall, but
Yep.
down for transient.
We saw a pretty substantial increase in line rent fees this year. Buffett, I think the sticker system that we used this year really worked out well. We did have a couple of people ask why they had to buy multiple permits for multiple trailers. Well, and just buy the $5 ticket when you have to launch that boat that doesn't have the sticker on it. So, but in general, the comments are really good about the sticker system. So,
Job well done, Michael.
thank you. Any questions for me?
No, great report, Michael. Thank you. It'd be good if we had a running history of the boat days and boat numbers back the last 5 years too. and we-
I can pull that together for you. Yep.
In addition to the dollars.
Yep.
Any other questions? Or any questions for Michael?
I was just gonna say the pop sales really caused our revenue to go down.
Oh, they killed it.
What about the nice?
I think you can take it. I mean, I'm off there.
My sales were really up this year.
Hot summer, right?
Yeah.
So. Any other questions for Michael? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work. In your packets, a letter to the commission from Chief Kyle Knight regarding the Marine Patrol that we had out this year. As you all know, we increased the presence on the water significantly in that. He was unable to be here. It was bummed that he wouldn't. You heard from Michael's comments. My observations that I felt were positive. What I heard during the course of the song.
And I also like to add, emphasize too, that it didn't cost us as much as we thought it was gonna cost us, which I think is a big. It's important, that,
I think the boys did a great job taking care of it, not going when they didn't need to go. And the next year, we probably ought to be in that ballpark because there was a fair amount of training for the new officer if, in fact, he comes back. That we won't have to pay twice for.
Larry's already indicated he wants to come back next season.
So,
Right. And he and Dean got along great on the water and off the water, so.
Yeah, we used about 45% of what we anticipated we were gonna use.
And Larry actually used the bicycle that the patrol provided to him too. Dean get dropped off, Larry rode the bike.
did anybody have any concerns about the reinforcement program? Because it was a big change.
They were very nice on the water, a friendly wave or whatever, you could see that they were making sure everyone was safe. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was. Very
I don't know if we have a way to track this, but were there any fewer complaints about the boat wakes this year for people that were paddling out there? Do we have any kind of record on that? I guess that would come from
That'd probably
police,
for Kyle.
probably.
I would ask that for Kyle.
I'd be curious about that to see if that, because that's why we did this in the first place, was trying to.
Right.
I think it would just off the top of my head, I think it'd be hard to gauge because now that we have more of a presence, you're gonna hear more complaints. When we probably would have heard as many complaints when you have less of a presence. But I can ask Kyle generally if they got more calls.
Yeah.
He kind of speaks to that in the third paragraph.
Yeah.
I know they spent a fair amount of time talking, slowing people down out there. I saw that happen.
Right.
So I think we're going in the right direction.
Complaining even after that.
So Victor, let's budget as if we were going forward on this based on the numbers we had this year.
Probably bet $15,000 or so. So we spent 13,000.
Great. On to the blessing of the fleet. You guys had to sit patiently for an hour.
Thank you, and thank you for all your hard work that we got to listen to for the past hour. My name is Kristen Baylog. I'm the executive director at the Harbor Springs Area Historical Society. And I'm here with Nate Graham, who is the chair of the Blessing of the Fleet. And we visited you in your wrap-up meeting, I think it was August, and we told you that we'd come back sooner this year and let you know what our intentions are for the 2024 event. So I've submitted a summary to each of you in your packet here on your desk. And just wanted to let you know that this year we plan on revisiting our partnership, revisiting a partnership and relationship with Little Traverse Ferry. We worked with them upon their grand opening several years back and provided a history program with them when they had their grand opening here in Fort Park. We traveled to all the ports with them, and that's kind of where our relationship began. And this year we have met and are collaborating to do a partnership that will replace the Isle Royal Queen coming in to do business with us. We're now going to use the Harbor Princess, which has joined the Ferry Foundation this past summer. So what I'm submitting to you here is just some information. June 26th, we'd like to do a sunset cruise. We did that last year with the Isle Royal Queen. However, this year we'll use the Little Traverse Ferry, the Harbor Princess. At this point, our intention is to depart from Petoskey. They have the parking over there. The round trip will still come into the harbor here. The cruise will maintain the same, but it gives us an opportunity to give a little more history of the harbor. Ticket sales, we will be plan to split the proceeds with the Little Traverse Ferry, and we will mutually sell those tickets. On June 27th, the actual parade cruise, the ferry will come in, depart again from Petoskey and come in and join the boat parade. What we're asking for here is the second paragraph under June 27th. This is not something that we've discussed yet, but I thought I'd listen to any concerns you might have. If the Harbor Princess is the larger of the two vessels of the Little Traverse Ferry, it's not, I just forgot the name of the smaller one.
He's parked right at the end of the Petoskey
Right,
here.
but it's not the I forget the smaller one's name anymore, but
I didn't know it had a name.
it does, yeah, it has a name, Elaine or Miss Edward, anyway, sorry. But if in doing the round trip for the boat parade, I see questions coming in that people might like to disembark in Harbor Springs to enjoy the festivities here in town. And so what I'm requesting is permission for the Harbor Princess to pull up to the day use dock just to disembark some passengers if they choose, and then they will leave and go back to harbor. They won't be coming back in to pick up those people. Those participants would be responsible for their own passage back to Petoskey if that's where they left their car. But I know that the larger of the two boats doesn't do business here in Harbor Springs. It draws 7 feet is what I found out. So I know that Michael and I have spoke that we would have to iron out the details. But that is one request that I'd like to ask of the Harbor Commission. And then the second request further down is something we've done the past few years. And that's to request that the south end of the main dock be left unoccupied during the boat parade from 5 to 7 p.m. And the Historical Society has paid for that dockage. Any questions?
When you and I talked yesterday, my concern was how much water we have at that south end of the Quincy dock. I guess we'll have to sound that in the spring to figure that out. And the other part of that would be, I've been over there to take a look at that boat. They have a pretty serious ramp and stair arrangement to get people on and off that dock. And the dock in Petoskey is probably another 3 feet off the water than the Courtesy dock itself. So we'd have to figure out, or they'd have to figure out somebody to get people on and off the boat comfortably.
Yeah, I have
From an
not
access
had the
standpoint.
opportunity to talk to their captain, Chris, who is much more familiar with the vessel itself. And so again, I'm asking you first before I get into a deep conversation with them, what the possibilities are. It is ADA accessible, which we can feel really great about. And their mission is uniting communities. And so this is the time is right for us to start working a little bit closer to home. And we're grateful for the success that we had with Isle Royal Queen. And we're just looking forward to this partnership.
My concern on using the two-hour dock is the displacement of that boat. It's considerably more than what we had in there before. And we could end up damaging that dock even just a touchdown to go. Why don't we use the south end of the main dock? We're already reserving it for them.
Is that a commercial use, which we don't allow at the dock?
Well, commercial use at any of them, we'll make an exception here. That's what we do.
Yeah, this
That
is
was
more or
my
less a
only-
fundraiser.
That's my only concern.
Yeah.
Then there's the ferry dock. Not enough depth.
I don't think there's enough water to ferry
I don't
down.
think there's enough.
4.5 right now.
But we know we have it at the end of
Yeah.
West Pier, and that dock could take it.
And I think,
Yeah.
I think the people aboard would prefer that dock over
Yeah.
I think the 2-hour dock on the end is only 6 feet wide.
Okay. That would be better for the community also. What we don't want to do is, we want to continue bringing people into the downtown area to celebrate after the boat parade. And so we'll make this option available if it's feasible and approved by the Harbor Commission. But first of all, we have to work out the feasibility.
So physically, it's possible there. Are we okay with that at the table? I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Is there enough distance between the cluster pilings at the end of the west dock to fit?
Well, you gotta figure out the
Yeah.
details on this.
It's
Or you could do
60
Back of the boat. end.
65 by 25.
It's tight, but
It could be done.
you could set the stern against the dock and.
Okay.
Are we okay with that? Does that make sense? I don't see it as a.
It makes more sense than the 2 hour doc.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the Historical Society? This pretty well follows other than change of boats and the pickup we just talked about, what we've been doing the last few years here, which has worked out fine, I think. So by consensus, are we okay with the plan?
Yes, yeah.
All right.
Thank you, and
All
I
the
think,
details with Michael.
okay, and I think Nate.
Yeah, in addition to the blessing of the fleet from things that we've done years past, we have been in touch with the 17s of Waldoon. Their historian, I got in touch with our local historian from our NMs, and they have great interest in joining us potentially for part of the blessing of the fleet, or to resurrect an idea of a similar race that we had with Dave Irish a few years ago with flopping the J17s. A gentleman named Bill Bray, who has been sailing them for the past 50 years, would love to be able to have some kind of conversation around the NMs and the 17's 90th birthday, which is the second.
What would they,
Yeah,
what would they need? A mooring, launch?
They would be open to doing something at the end of the season. They would need help with launch. They would need help with mooring to some degree. Depending on how long and how many of them would be available, it seems like at least 3 or 5 of them would like to come north.
well, put together a plan. At the end of the season, I think you'll find us cooperative.
Yeah, end of the season. Yeah.
End of the season would be more ideal for them as well.
Yeah, last time we did this, it was the beginning of the season. And there was no one out there. I think Michael will remember that. It was just the 4 boats, we had 4, 2 and 2. And this time there's more interest in doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, bring us a plan.
Awesome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, we get through, not so bad on that stuff. Any comments from the table?
No.
Anybody? We may very well have a meeting in sometime in the early winter. We'll probably have something to look at the building. They have some Fort Park stuff to go. So we won't pick a date yet. We'll wait till this stuff develops and then we'll let you know. And try to make it as palatable for everybody on it. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.